and welcome to the third instalment of No Small Questions, where you, the listener, get to pose your burning questions to the No Small Roles cast. I'm Superfan Sam, your question master, and joining me tonight, we have the voice behind our flower-checking sorceress and total sweetheart Juna, the hilarious Vicky Gaskin. We also have the dungeon master himself, world builder and storyteller, crafter of dreams and nightmares, Mr. David Knight. And we have the first guest star of the saga so far. You'll remember her from episodes 16 to 18 as the wannabe warrior Deacon Fireheart Button. A big welcome to the wonderful Sarah Gain. Let's have a little bit of applause there. They're all wonderful.
Applause. Hi, everyone.
Also, let's have a massive shout out to our live audience members. We are thrilled to have some of our No Small Roles Patreon subscribers in the Zoom with us. By joining us tonight, our patrons get to enjoy our company and, more excitingly perhaps, they get to ask their own questions directly to the cast. Now, before we get started, I should mention that we're going to be starting with more general questions, but after those, it's likely there will be spoilers up to episode 22. So if you haven't caught up with the story, are you nuts? Go back and listen to it. It's pure gold, and we'll wait here for you until you're ready. All good? You caught up? Let's jump in then. How are you, everyone?
Good, thank you.
Good. Excited to be talking to people.
Has it been some time?
Lockdown 3. What?
Gives you plenty of time for editing and coming up with new material, though, I'm guessing.
Literally all I've been doing, yeah.
Okay, shall we kick it off? Let's get some questions going. This first one is a really important one. It's from Facebook, and this is Michael Cook, who asks, why is Baby David called Baby David? So I'm guessing this is a question for you, David.
Question.
It's brilliant. I'm not even going to answer that, because whilst I have been gifted the name Baby David, I did not choose it. So I blame Vicky. It's entirely her fault.
It's because he's a bear. We did a show, I want to say 2012?
Was it 2013?
2013,
maybe, yeah.
2013. We did a show of Dracula, and like he just missed so many like pop culture references as a result of being like substantially younger. Like, was it you who like hadn't heard of Funhouse?
Yeah, and I've still not seen or really heard of Funhouse. I have a vague, just Sarah shaking her head. I've got a vague understanding it is like a CBBC program from the 90s.
Yes.
CBBC didn't even really exist back then, not like that.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was very like broom cupboard, broom closet. Yeah. So like he missed all of these like pop culture references, and like we were like, I mean, you're not that much younger than me.
I mean, I'm enough. And
like
I think at the time,
6 years.
I think everybody else was like edging towards their like late 20s, early 30s, and I was still very much early 20s.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff that I just did not understand what you were talking about.
And then in the royal family, Denise and David have the Baby David.
Of course, yeah.
And so they call him the Baby David, and so it kind of stuck. There was a couple of drunk evenings where we sang songs and replaced the lyrics with Baby David, like Tiny Baby David Dancer, that kind of stuff. And it's really hard to not do it. And I deal with you now on like quite a lot of professional levels, and it's really hard to be like have to make sure I don't call him Baby David.
Well,
and
it's not
really
just
hard
you though,
to
is
lose.
it? It's spread to everyone now.
It has
Because
spread.
at what point did it start like catching fire and just spreading to the rest of
I have
everyone
introduced
you know?
Baby David to everyone else in No Small Roles as Baby David. That's how he's been introduced to everyone.
Funnily enough, the first time I met David, I was introduced to him, and I don't think you were there for that, but I was introduced to him as Baby David. So it's just it's kind of been a thing with me as well.
So that's the thing, like it has spread so that not even just Vicky introducing me as Baby David, other people who have been introduced to me as Baby David now introduce me to other people as Baby David. I'm stuck as Baby David.
And I can't take full responsibility. It was me, Nikki, and Ellie who came up with it together. who I know will be listening, and I know at least one of them has a question that they want asked, so I know they will be listening, so I have to credit them as well. But that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very, very ominous DM name. And I wonder if that's what makes you so cruel sometimes with your choices, the things that you do to your players.
It's like, you treat me like a baby, I'm going to have a tantrum.
TPK. Amazing. We finally have an answer to that question. Moving on. The next question that we got is from Instagram, and this is at Bethan K. Jones, 91, who asks, I've recently been listening to the podcast, so I'm not fully caught up yet. Hey, new listener. But what do you all enjoy most about playing D&D? So who wants to take this one first? I'm looking at you, Vicky.
Okay. I was going to take a back seat because I feel like I've done a lot of talking already. The best thing about D&D at the moment is, like, in lockdown, everything is weird. There's so many things we can't do. We can't work properly. Like, I like being outside. I like being with a lot of people. So most of the things I enjoy doing, I can't do. But there's something really great about playing D&D in general, but also about coming together as No Small Roles. And you can just, we're playing a game not dissimilarly to if we were around a table doing it. We're just on Zoom, and you can just forget about COVID, forget about anything that sucks, forget about, something that you're worried about, and just get lost in a completely different world for a couple of hours. And it's kept me going through the lockdown trilogy personally. So yeah, I think that.
Oh, that's wonderful. How about, let's go along the line. Let's, Sorry, I've had a complete mind blank. I've already asked a question. Sorry, who's next? Sarah, we haven't heard from you yet. Oh, God, too much drink already.
Never too
Sarah,
much.
How about you? What do you enjoy most about playing D&D? What's the reason you kind of come back to it?
I think, definitely partly on what Vicky says. I think that there's that kind of nice community thing, but I think... sort of there's two reasons. One, you kind of get with this group of people and you feel very much an ensemble in whatever's happening around you, and you get to enjoy this amazing story, but then you can also kind of prod bits and change that story, and just having that complete change of roles is just always really good fun, because you become immersed in a world, and like you say, you can forget about everything. Plus, I just really like kicking butt, so.
Is that not true in real life as well, then?
Well, you just get told off more about it in real life.
Sarah takes no prisoners in real life. I have that authority.
I was going to say, if Sarah had a mace and it was allowed, she would be like full fire heart.
Leaping out of bushes.
Yeah.
Amazing. How about you, David? Yeah.
I like to make up stories, but I'm also quite a lazy writer. Like, there's this thing of, like, if you have to sit down and write, like, it suddenly becomes work rather than just, like, telling the stories. Whereas D&D is, like, that nice little shortcut that, like, you can come up with something and then have it realized. Like, and what's also brilliant is I tend to play with a lot of actors, so the performance of the characters in the story are suddenly that much more entertaining anyway. So yeah, that's, for me, it's just like I get to experience a story that, like, I've written the outline for, and there it is, fully formed, and like, it's entertaining to play. And the other thing is that I don't have complete control. Like, obviously, if you're sitting and writing, you're working very, like, insular, whereas with D&D, suddenly the story is everybody's, and like, I can throw things at them, but then they throw things right back, and you've just got to go, okay, well, I guess this scene is happening over here then.
Yeah, adapt with it, because you are a player as well, though. Do you get similar things from being a player, or is it a different experience? Do you enjoy something else when you play compared to when you DM?
I don't know. When I've played as a player, I do think I'm a lot more lost. As in, like as DM, like, you've got, like, the story planned out, you're, like, laying the tracks as you go along. But as a player, I am just so completely lost that I don't know if I'm a good player or not. It's a very different experience. I know that sounds weird, but Yeah, I feel like I second guess my choices a lot more, to see what everybody else is doing, just because I'm used to letting the other players run wild in front of me, I suppose.
I mean, I've seen you kick butt as characters, though, so I think maybe taking a backseat in the decision making, but you are definitely at the front.
Oh, when it comes to combat, it's my turn. I'm not going to. I'm not going to go away with it, but
just thought I should clarify. Amazing. Let's go on to another question, which is again from Michael Cook on Facebook. He has asked a few questions, so I think he's coming for my superfan spot. Not that I'm against that, because we love more questions, and thank you, Michael Cook, for supplying these. His next question is, do you listen to the podcast when it airs? So I think, Sarah, I'm guessing you probably do listen to the podcast when it airs, except maybe those 3 episodes. Did you listen to those?
No, I haven't listened to them, actually.
Shocker.
Do you know all I've heard? And in a way, I kind of know why I haven't, because I heard the clip that went over Instagram, which is the description of the compass where Deacon was trying to describe it. And it was kind of weird and funny listening to it back. I'm an actor. I'm used to seeing myself back on things like that's fine. But somehow it was like, it is fun to hear, and I loved being in the middle of those stories, but part of me didn't want to hear myself back again, because I was like, I kind of liked inhabiting that little Deacon world in a way. So I know that sounds really weird, but yeah, so that's kind of why I think I didn't. Also,
not at all.
I'm really bad at listening to podcasts. So I realise it's a really bad thing to say on a podcast.
I'm being booted right now, everybody.
I know. I'm the worst person.
Been a pleasure having you, Sarah.
She's gone.
But no, I do get that sentiment, because I think we all have a little bit that, particularly, us who are actors, we have that sense of when something is filmed or when something is recorded, there is like the cringy element of, well, I don't remember it being like that, or I was in the moment that I didn't notice those little things, and you're more likely to pick them up than anybody else. So yeah, I personally hate watching myself back, but your episodes were brilliant. So
I think it's also that thing. Yes. I think it's that thing as well of just kind of, I didn't see what I was doing as a performance. I saw it as part of the game, as part of the fun, and then suddenly listening to it back to it makes it into a performance for me to listen to that. That sounds weird, but yeah. So I don't want to see it that way. I still want to see it as my game.
Oh, amazing! I get that. I'll listen to them for you, Sarah. I'm more than happy to do that again. Because like I said, they're amazing. And I'm not going to do any spoilers now. Instead, we're going to ask the same question of Vicky.
I do listen to them, half because I love listening to David's music. Like, it's like, because obviously I was there when it was recorded, it's just really nice to like hear it with the soundtrack on. But also I'm like, when you're playing, I think like the classic moment was the phylactery. Like not like everyone else was like, the table, and like none of us were working it out. And I think that moment I was like, oh, it's really important that I listen to it back, just in case, we've missed something major. And then, in fact, there is something that we have missed that is going to be rectified. Has that happened yet?
Wow, interesting.
What?
I mean, I don't want to know if it's happened yet or not.
It's like an innocuous thing. No.
Cool,
it doesn't really matter. It was just a continuity flaw. And from listening back, we were able to go, oh, yeah, that.
Well, because I've noticed, like, Ben says this, like, at some points in the episode, that he's like, I don't actually have my notes, but I normally, because I'm editing it, I go back and I listen to it anyway. There is kind of an advantage in a way. Like, a lot of players in another campaign, the DM will notice if they haven't taken their notes, that's their problem. That's their fault, and something can happen. There might be a little hint to something. If they miss that, game over. But with you guys, at least, you can just be like, I know that was mentioned in episode 15, so I'm just going to go back and listen to that episode again. Yeah. And then come back and it's like, well, actually, my character remembers everything.
Yeah.
Grace has just DM'd me to tell me that it's okay to mention it. It's tiny things. So Deacon basically gave a pearl necklace to Juna to give to Gwen, And it was Grace, actually, who was listening back to it. She was editing it. And I just got this WhatsApp saying, where's my pearl necklace, bitch? And like, Tuna has so much crap hanging off her. I'd sort of forgotten about it. And then I was listening to it back and was like, oh, between receiving the pearl necklace and then rectifying it in game as a result of Grace reminding me, Orin went off and bought a pearl. And I'm just like, oh yeah, with like a pearl necklace on. So I think it's really useful, particularly like when you're like, if we're like, you know, rolling initiative, you know, you're going, oh God, how many spell slots have I got? And what am I going to do? And I've only really got ranged things, and you don't have to worry about any of that. You can just listen to everyone else's wonderful stuff.
Man, it is truly wonderful. And let's have the crafter of it now as well, the crafter of wonderful things.
I am in a funny position because I don't listen to it back when it's released. But that's because I get the... so we record it. It gets sent off to the editing team, which is Grace, Ben, Chris, Daryl's learning as well. They edit it together and they send me the final edit and I put music to that. So I essentially am listening to bits of it over and over and over and over and over again to like get the music timed right. So by the time the music is done, I feel like I've listened to each episode like 400 times. So I tend not to listen to it once it's fully released.
That makes sense. I mean, I suppose for everybody else, the bonus to listening to it after you've had it is that the music is in there.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas there's kind of no real surprise for you.
No, that's fine. Like, yeah, like I the only thing that I don't hear quite often is our Grace's announcements in the middle of the recording, because exactly like
you should
those
listen to them, David. They're really good.
I really should. Those are like added in after the music.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I miss, and sometimes Grace is like, I did say it in the hay, and I'm like, oh, okay. Thank you for cool, all right. Should probably keep a track of that announcements and stuff.
I mean, I've got to say, like, considering I do the recaps, it's the similar thing, like listening to the episode like over and over, particularly certain segments if I wanted to like include that soundbite. But I've still binged it again and not felt like, oh, this is dull because I know everything that's happening here. Yeah.
That's why you're Superfan Sam.
Well, I think Superfan Hannah is similar to me. And she's way more on it than I am. You should have heard us in our Superfan chats last time. All of the things that she predicted came true. But
I want more Superfan chats.
I promise you there's one on the way. We're going to organise one. There's a lot to talk about.
They were brilliant, mostly because then I could use your ideas. And that was...
You know what? I never thought of it that way.
Worst case scenarios. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. Okay.
So basically in the next one, if I'm like, Hannah, I'm pretty sure he's going to be bringing out an ancient gold dragon into this next fight. That's going to be happening. That they have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think that's absolutely fine. Throw a dragon at them. They're level 4?
I was going to say maybe not a gold dragon. They're normally quite good. A green one or something like that.
Nah, let's make it a gold. Okay. Let's make them the bad guys. Yeah.
Amazing.
Bring it back, but give us Deacon again.
Sure, Deacon riding
Deacon.
ancient gold dragon swooping
Perfect.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Love
he'd
it.
be all over it.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Okay, let's have another question. This is a question from Instagram at Iron Paradigm, who asks, this is a random and open-ended question, but I hope you can help me. What is your advice for someone looking to DM for the first time? What are some of the common pitfalls? Thank you. I'm assuming that one is for David, as our resident DM.
General DMing advice. First time, I mean, I was very lucky. Vicky was in the first game that I ever DM'd, and I was running the...
You were very lucky.
Very lucky. And we ran The Lost Mines of Phandelver. So I had like the book, and I'd read it cover to cover, which wasn't essential because I think we got through basically the first goblin bit.
It took us so long.
Took us so
create
long.
Characters.
Yeah. But general advice is that I would say, like, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Like, rely on your players. They're part of the table, part of the game. Obviously, like, if you've got specific things that you want to happen and you want to help, like, plan out your adventure beforehand, great. But do leave some things open and then just see what happens. Like, see what the players come out with and just, like, go with it. It's like classic improv rule, like yes and. Obviously, if they're about to suggest something that is absolutely crazy, maybe give them like a brief out before saying yes and. But otherwise, just be like, yep. And to be honest, if you can't decide, let them roll a dice. Like, let that be the way to like guide the story. I was listening to Dragon Talk, another sort of chatty podcast, and they had someone on who wrote. I'm going to get all of this information wrong. I'm very sorry. He wrote a book called the Lazy DM's Workbook or something like that. And his advice, which I think is brilliant, is not to necessarily plan, like sort of furnish each and every room to the like nth degree, but to just come up with like 5 or 6 secrets for like the players to discover in a session. And then as the opportunity comes up, Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master by Michael Shea? Don't know. Been helped out by Mr. Ben Galpin hiding in the shadows there.
Shea or Shea, yeah.
Yeah, Shea. But he said, yeah, so come up with the secrets, like the information that's important to the plot. But then as the characters explore, just drop them into whatever scene happens to be happening. So it might come out of an NPC's mouth. It might be found in a book. It might be like written on a statue or something like that. And I actually think that's really good advice for someone starting out. Essentially, don't put pressure on the minute details. Like, just worry about the overarching plot points. And everything else will fill itself in.
So kind of, you're thinking like the common pitfalls really are just almost over planning and being rigid to that, and what people should expect is like let the players dictate in a way the what happens. I think you kind of got to leave it open ended.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think the common pitfalls are to spend too long planning, so that when that doesn't happen in game, you've sort of wasted time beforehand. Obviously, planning can be a lot of fun in and of itself. But also to put too much pressure on yourself going in. Like, and don't do that. Like, you're there to, the DMs are there to have as much fun as the player characters. So come up with something fun that you think is going to be funny to watch the players react to, but then let them come up with something to entertain you at the same time.
Oh, amazing. Hopefully for all the wannabe DMs out there, that's a little bit of like information. It's like, take it cool. Have fun. Relax. Yeah. It's a journey that you enjoy together.
Yeah.
Oh, that's made me feel all light and fluffy now. I don't know why. Let's move on to another question. And I've just seen a notification that the wonderful superfan Hannah has a question, and she is live in the Zoom now. So let's go over to her.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I'm feeling a tiny bit starstruck. Oh my god.
We're real people. Look at us.
So I have sort of a 2-part question. Obviously, with the current world situation, lockdown, etc., D&D is not all together in a room around a table. So do you have a preference in terms of rolling physical dice or using an app? Or like, do you use like D&D Beyond, or are you like pen and paper all the way? And sort of linked to that, do you have any D&D superstitions? I know charging dice might.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Let's go with Sarah. We haven't heard from you in a little while. Do you have any like superstitions and stuff like that?
I don't know if I have any superstitions particularly. However, that said, I am quite passionate about the fact that the dice need to be physical dice, because there was a short period when we first came into lockdown, and I was I ended up having to use my app, and I was convinced it was completely and utterly sabotaging me. And ever since I got physical dice, they were so much better. So that's the closest I come to a superstition. I was like, Google is out to get me.
Sarah, I completely agree with you. I use physical dice for the same reason. I'm like, I don't trust the app. They can I mean, why they would be out to get you, I don't know, but I totally
It's
agree.
just algorithms, yeah.
Yeah,
I know, it's ridiculous, but I just felt like I got far worse rolls doing it over like the D20 Google roll than I did doing it with actual physical dice. So I was much happier when I had physical dice. So that's the closest I come. And then as far as the D&D Beyond versus pen and paper, love the idea of pen and paper. And usually I would say that, but I am awful at maths. And if I can see it written on that, for some reason, clearly the way it's put out in D&D Beyond, I just find that I can find my weapons quicker. I can find what I'm good at, what I'm not. If it's on a piece of paper, even though it's just like 2 bits, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I don't know, I find it easier I feel in control of my character if I've got it on my tablet in D&D Beyond, and I'm just like, yeah, I know that I've got a +3 strength score. Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, they're my preferences. So digital for D&D Beyond and my sheet, but it has to be real dice.
Amazing. How about you, Vicky?
I like leveling up on D&D Beyond with a bit of a nod to the player's handbook and printing out my sheets. But I like having sheets that I've sort of, I like having it all nice and clean.
Oh, so it's like a combination of the two then?
Yeah. So
that's clever.
when I first started playing, I had my Muji pen that you could rub out, and I would like rub it out till I'd rubbed like holes in the paper. And now I like having it all like nice and neat and clean. I don't know. I think because I've always had paper, I struggle, and particularly because I'm a sorcerer, like trying to find spells, I like having them almost like the paper like laid out like a piece of sheet music, like sellotaped together, so it's just there, physical. I don't have to worry about it.
And do you have any like superstitions as well?
No, but the same as Sarah, like I don't trust the dice rolling apps at all. And like I'd never bought dice because we always played in real life, and I always stole them off Baby David until lockdown. And suddenly I was forced to start using an app, and I was like, nah. So that was the thing that forced me to get my own set of dice, which I now keep in a very lovely dice pouch made by So Like Sarah on Etsy.
Oh, we love the plugs.
Plug.
I've got one too.
They're really cool.
They're velvet.
I've actually
as well,
got
really
my
nice.
dice in what has been described as a chainmail testicle.
Wow.
Actually, my little brother got this for me for Christmas, and I'm kind of in love with it. But then somebody called it that, and I was like, I'm again. I think it's. I feel like it's got to be physical dice. It's something about the sensation of, first of all, like playing with the dice before you've even rolled it, like trying to will them to do something. Like the apps for bigger rolls. Yep. Like if as soon as it's more than like 4D whatever, it's got to go to an app, just because do it like rolling the dice and then trying to add it up like that is a bit of a headache. Whereas like on D&D Beyond, for instance, on their dice roll, you can just say here's 4 dice and that's the result.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're a high level rogue and you've only got one set of dice, that is taking you a long
Yeah,
time.
can you imagine having to roll that sneak attack dice over and over and over and adding it up each time?
She's been there, she's done it.
Yeah, exactly, right? How many dice have I rolled? What's the number I'm on?
I'm just going to keep telling you numbers. I'm just going to keep
Somebody else
saying
counted.
that's exactly what happened. I was just like, how many? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I think this is my 8th one or something daft like that.
Also,
But,
dice sound amazing on a podcast.
They do.
Like it adds a little sort of noise.
So, am I able to answer this question as well, Hannah? As a
Oh, I was
player
about to ask you, Sam. I want to
Well,
know
yeah,
if
what do
Hannah
you
has
do?
any
You play?
superstitions and
Well,
what she does
I do
as well.
have superstitions. I am one with the charging dice. I've always done it. Not necessarily that I believe that that if I don't do that I will have bad rolls for the rest of the evening. It's more of a like OCD thing with me that I feel like I'm going to make bad choices if they're not all on their maximum output. But it's also like a therapeutic thing of just like, I'm going to turn that D20 so it's perfect. But in terms of like using digital to using like real dice and stuff like that, I am a big fan of D&D Beyond. I started on Roll20. So again, on a back when you could meet up with people, I was still playing in a virtual environment with my mates. So I started off that way. I've only ever played once in my life with a sheet of paper.
Wow.
And ever since then, I've been D&D Beyond because I can make like 20 characters in my own the game that I run as well. All of my player sheets are within D&D Beyond, and I can update them and send them items on there. I can help them out with little things. It's got its own builder on it. And things like when you get to a long rest, if you're playing as a magic type user and you get those 8 hours, there's no like rubbing everything out. You just press the long rest button and everything is fresh again. Plus, I don't know, you can customize it and you can put little pictures in there and stuff like that. So I kind of like that element. However, I will never, ever use digital dice. Particularly because like I love the feeling of casting dice, and if I am going to roll a natural one, I want it to be me that did it, you know. I don't want to leave that down to an algorithm.
Yeah.
Plus, for my birthday this year, somebody, a wonderful person, got me a dice tower. So I have a lot of fun now. You know, whenever I'm rolling any kind of check, I'll just pop it through the tower, and that gives me an immense amount of satisfaction.
What about you, Hannah? What do you use?
Grace will be able to tell you that I have a few superstitions around dice. So always physical dice, and actually I'm pen and paper all the way. Although Vicky, sometimes like you, I will print out a fresh one when it's just gotten too covered in scribbles. Dice wise, obviously charging dice, very important. Got to get the maximum power into your dice and have good rolls. Also, I like to arrange them by color. Just 'cause, I mean, 'cause it looks nice mainly, but it also helps to see which sets I've got. And I don't like it when other people touch my dice without asking.
Yeah.
I feel like they put their bad juju on it. And also, I will use different color dice for different things. So certain sets of dice are for like magic rolls, and certain ones are for combat, like melee combat rolls.
That does
Yeah,
make sense. Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah. Actually, saying that, again, my same little brother, he bought me like a Call of Cthulhu set of dice. Not the game, but they're just all covered in like eldritch horror tentacles and stuff. Cool. And I do tend to, like you say, like different sets for different things. I tend to go to those for the monster rolls. Like every time there's something that's a little bit more aggressive, like those are the dice that I feel like are more aggressive.
Yeah, my barbarian character uses the red and the black dice a lot.
That's quite true, actually. I didn't think about this one. And this is probably more, again, OCD than superstition. But at the beginning of every session, I have, in my little dice tray, I've got 6 sets of dice. So I've got 3 metal ones and 3 of the plastic versions. And they're set so that, you know, it's a triangle of each, naturally. But then at the beginning of each session, I will roll all of the D20s. And whichever ones have the highest outcome are the 2 that I use for my normal and, you know, advantage, disadvantage. But it's always, you know, the one that rolled as close to natural 20 is my prime die until it lets me down.
Well, my dice literally sit in a heap on my desk whilst I'm playing. I had no idea that, like, this level of thought. I could roll so much better.
Are you inviting chaos on yourself? What is
I
wrong
think
with
I
you?
am. Although I charge crystals and moon water under the full moon. So while we're having this conversation, I think what I will start doing is leaving my dice out in the full moon and see how that fares, and that will be my superstition as of the 28th of January.
Oh my lord! I'm
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
Moonstone dice just to really amp that up.
Oh yeah!
I'm getting some.
I'm already on Etsy.
Amazing, great question, Hannah. Thank you so much for that one.
Thank you, Hannah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Amazing. I think it's time for another question from Michael Cook, don't you?
Yeah.
And this is really interesting because it follows on from what we've just been discussing with Hannah. He asks here, do you have a lucky dice?
No.
Simple answer.
No,
I've only got one set, so I can't really. Yeah, I'm with Vicky. I can't really say I've got a lucky one because I've only got one set. So
But
it's
which
lucky in
one's
that
the
it's not one.
luckiest?
Out of all of the different. Actually, probably my D6.
Ooh, interesting. Because I've played with you in the past, and you roll a lot of natural 20s. Like a
You
I
do.
need to thank.
You
do you know what? I
do.
need to thank Grace for this because Grace is actually the one who gifted me those dice, and they're in my other character Alara's colours,
Oh.
which is
did,
where
yeah.
I played
I
with
remember
you.
that.
And I think they're Alara's dice, and I think that's why I don't know.
Gifted
Maybe
dice
that's-
sound like lucky dice.
They do, don't they? So I think
Mm.
maybe she put some good energy my way. So I think maybe that's why they roll well.
Clearly not by touching them, though. We've heard that is taboo.
Oh yeah, yeah. You
If
shouldn't
we've
touch.
learned anything tonight,
other
that is
people's
what
dice.
we've learned. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I have a lucky dice. I do like my D20s. I feel like they treat me well. And not necessarily treat my players well, but they treat me well.
I feel like your D20s treat you well.
Yeah.
Amazing. I find that, again, very, very ominous. But so this is from a friend of the show, Nikki Diss, who I'm assuming has asked this in person. And it's a question for David and Vicky. So on average, how many minutes or hours a day do you think about No Small Roles?
Well, there's very little else to do in lockdown, so 24 hours? Is 24 hours enough? No. 25 hours a day is probably better.
And is this also when you're with your child?
Yeah.
You're still thinking about No
I just
Small
have
Roles?
full conversations with the little lady saying, do you think this is a good idea? And she gives me her opinions, which are most of the time no, because she knows that word now. And that's it. That's all she says. She says a lot of things. She says no man. She says no man when she wants to watch Frozen. So
Aww.
correct reaction. Well done, everyone.
That is so
Inspiration for you
adorable.
all.
It's cute.
Oh, I
It's
think-
cute until you've seen Frozen 1, 2, and Olaf's Frozen Adventure and Frozen Fever 3 times in a day. Then you're like, no, I think we've had enough, no man. Let
Yeah,
it go.
I think I know why you're thinking of No Small Roles all the time. It's escapism.
Yeah, it's just to distract myself. No, I feel like I think about it a lot, mostly because I obviously plan ahead and I'm also doing the music for it as well, like as part of the editing process. So, as well as like trying to like promote it on the social medias and like do Patreon posts and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like it's one of the best kinds of hobbies to put so much work into. Like I literally enjoy every minute of effort that goes into creating all of this. So I very happily think about it every
Do you get those
Every
like
chance
you
I
know
get.
moments of like thrill when you're like, oh, okay, I've just realised how that connects to that, and you're just like,
Yes. So I want to talk about this. Is it the episode that we just had that had the Woodcarvers
Yeah.
song in it?
Yeah, the one that came out on Sunday.
Story. So yeah, I was
Spoilers.
listening back to spoilers.
Sorry.
Episode 22. Juna tells a story about a woodcarver. I had not heard this story before Vicky started saying it, but then listening back to it and writing the music for it, I was like, oh my god, the woodcarver is the one that has made this pipe. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's going to ever come back and be a thing, but like, I was suddenly super excited that I'd stumbled onto some conspiracy in a story that I'm like guiding.
It makes
so-
so much sense, though.
And it makes so much sense. And the thing is,
sense.
none of us like even like pieced those two things together at the time. It's only like afterwards, listening back to it, that I was like, oh my gosh, that has to be the answer to that.
oh, that's so...
Like where that thing has come from.
It's like
so
completely serendipitous, isn't it?
Yeah. And like
brilliant.
we're episodes on now, and yeah, whether or not like that comes out in story, like the players have found a way to cope, shall we say? But since then, obviously no spoilers, but Yeah,
the lovely tale of Crowl the Woodcarver.
Crowl the wood. Oh gosh, no.
Oh,
But yeah, no. So I do still get moments of excitement about the story. Yeah, definitely.
Aww. How about you, Vicky? So yeah, do you how often throughout the day?
I mean, it's
on
interesting that Nikki has asked this question because I spend a lot of time talking and working with the person who's asked this question, like a really, really, really long amount of time. I find that I think about it like in a much more sort of whimsical, nice way. Like if I'm going, I run a lot in Richmond Park, and I find myself thinking about, I also listen to No Small Roles a lot while I run, but I think a lot about things to do with No Small Roles. But what I've found recently is I find like, it's almost like in life, suddenly I'm like, I see No Small Rolesy things. Like I haven't seen Willow since I was a child. And I watched it again over the weekend. And there are so many things in Willow that I'm like, have I remembered that from when I was a child? And that's part of what I've put into No Small Roles. Like there's one
influence.
character in particular, a sort of an old lady sorcerer that I'm like, do I remember? Like, is this somehow in my psyche, or is it just something that like I felt like, oh yeah, I'll watch Willow because I'm thinking so much about sort of fantasy things, and I rewatched the Lord of the Rings trilogy over Christmas, and I find like, I sort of feel like I'm sort of caught between the two worlds of like thinking about No Small Roles things and like, oh, how cool would this be? And I wonder what's behind the mask and stuff. And then suddenly being like, like it has that influenced me and I've not really realised it.
That's interesting. Do you find as well, like story-wise, you're thinking about things throughout the week? So if something happens in 1 week where you've played, how much of that like stays with you till the next week where you're kind of like asking what route is David going down next?
Yeah, and I feel like there's always something that comes at like the one that we no spoilers here, but the episode we've just finished, I feel like Juna really learned a lesson, and I feel like I'm sort of holding on to this whole like, oh, how does Juna really feel about that, and how much is she gonna just keep that inside, or how much is she who is she gonna confide in, and how upfront is she gonna be that she sort of feels this way about this sort of particular thing, or just sort of get a bit lost in it all. it's a nice place to be, and my brain whizzes round really fast all of the time. I find it very hard to not be thinking of something. I'm not someone who finds things like meditation very easy, so it's almost like it's quite a nice sort of thing to be whizzing round when I don't want to be stressed out about things. And also like I said on the last No Small Questions, like Juna is intrinsically linked with my nan who has passed away and my grandma who lives in Norfolk and I haven't been able to see. So I spend a lot of time kind of mixing those two things, which again is really nice. So I spend a lot of just free time thinking about it. Yeah.
I think we do as well. I'm going to be honest. I think about the show a lot.
Good.
Probably an embarrassing amount considering I'm not in it constantly. But anyway, right, let's move on from that.
No, I think it's nice. I think it's nice having a like a communal world we can all get lost in. It's the same, it's why some of the massive franchises, which, there's so many of them. That's why people get involved, because we can all share about it. We can talk about it. And that's why Superfan Chats is so fun. Yeah.
Oh, bless you. We'll do one just for you.
Thanks.
It'll entirely be about Juna and everything that goes on with her.
I don't want to hear about Juna. I want to hear about everyone else. I want to know Oren's backstory.
I think we all do. Yeah. There's little hints of it coming out, and I can't wait for more little nuggets of information. But I'm sure Hannah and I will unpack all of that the next time we get a chat. There's a lot
and Hannah
of
will just get it all right,
about.
So we'll all know.
Yeah.
No clues for David this time.
Notebook out.
This next question is actually for you, Dave. So from Twitter, this is at Shaniomaniac, who asks, what is the Dave Master thinking or doing when the cast are monologuing to each other?
That's a good question.
There are a few thoughts Number one, how long can I let this go on for so that I get a rest? And like the flip side of that, like how long can I let this go on for before it gets too boring? I know that sounds weird. Like the conversations that they have are so fascinating. But also, and I'm sure like quite easily just listen to two characters talking for an hour and a half. But, you know, sometimes a bit of action has to happen. So, yeah, a lot of the time I'm just waiting for a good moment that, like, it feels like the conversation has come to something, or that it's about to come to something, and then I interrupt.
I suppose this is the thing with actors, though, is that they can just monologue for hours.
Yeah.
You know, if you just let them improv, that's the
and
episode.
like especially this party, I'm sure I could definitely walk away for an entire episode, and they would talk. We've actually got there again an episode that we've recorded fairly recently. I think it will come out toward the end of Feb. They talk for 45 minutes and I don't.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it is brilliant. Like, I was sat there being like, what's going to happen next? But I did not need to say a word. Yeah. I was in, like...
If you're
in those
talking about
moments.
what I think you're talking about, I feel like you very much wound everyone up and just let us go like
Let you
wind up
go.
toys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like, a lot of it is, like, deciding what happens next when the conversation ends. And a lot of it is just sitting and enjoying the conversation. Obviously, for DMs that are listening, like, it is quite tricky sometimes and quite exhausting to, like, be turned on for a whole, like, a period of time. So when the players are being characters, yeah,
Be really childish here.
not like that, Sam. If it's been more than 4 hours, call your doctor. But you know what I mean, like sort of being switched on, shall we say? That like when players like start inhabiting just their characters and they're just having conversations, or like they're planning out what they're going to do next, like those whole planning sessions that parties can get themselves into. It is just really fun to just sit back and just listen, and to enjoy it as much as they do.
And you really let us talk ourselves into a corner. Like, We Must Be In Tomorrow is a prime example of David going, I'ma just let you roll with this. You're completely
I'm going to see where this goes. Yeah. No, that was great. And especially, like, you kept asking me questions and I was like, I'm going to give you short answers because I don't want to be involved in this. I want to see how ridiculous you get without my input.
Because fully did come to that decision together, and it was beautiful. I was right there with you for a few moments. But actually, when you're saying about, you know, people like not monologuing but talking as a party and like coming up with things, it's kind of, this is a question from me. But when people start talking about their like backstory and stuff like that, does any of that like surprise you, or do you find that okay, these are things that we've discussed like a little bit before we started playing, and now that it's coming out in the story, I'm learning a bit more? Or do you find sometimes you're like, okay, I actually didn't know that about Enkidu, or you know, there's still stuff about Juna's past that clearly Vicky knows, but I don't as a DM know that yet. And how does that make you feel when certain things come out? Because does it like change what you're about to do, or?
So yeah, there are some moments that, like, obviously I've had discussions with all of the players about like the big points in their backstory, but then the way they tell it often comes out differently to how I've necessarily pictured it. Or for example, with Sarah and Deacon, like we chatted about stuff, and then I sent her like a list of questions and like names and things that might come up, but we hadn't then had like a follow-up conversation until the game. So like the name Siliphalia coming out, I was like, oh cool, that's what he's called. Like, I don't know. And yeah, and like a lot of the warrior stuff, yeah, like that I was blown away by. It was really enjoyable to be like, okay, how do I build this in? Like, this is more toys to play with.
Oh, that's so cool.
And we love it when David gets surprised. It's really nice seeing him out of control.
Such a rare occasion.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to we've had a couple of like hints at spoilers, but now let's make it official. There will be spoilers from this point on, people, because the questions are aiming in that direction. So from our Zoom chat, our Patreon Karen has a question, which is, what's David's process for creating music? In one of the final episodes of the first arc, I noticed how each character seemed to have their own motif, which played when they had their action. How did he come up with these? That's a really good question.
Yeah.
How to write music? I don't know, Karen. No, it's something I decided fairly early on is that I would try to definitely put music, at least scoring No Small Roles, is try to put music in when players cast magic. So that happens. I don't know if anyone's noticed that, and to be honest, there's probably times when I've forgotten. So every time there's a piece of magic, to like lift it, rather than putting in a magical effect, I try to put in a little bit of a tune. And then once I've written a tune for a particular spell, I save it. I just save it so that next time that spell comes out, I can chuck it back in. And you'll notice a lot of it is copy and paste. I might tweak it up, tweak it down, shorten it to like make it fit the description or like make it longer. But like that's largely where the sort of themes come from. But then the other thing that I decided is for fights, because a D&D fight can go on for over an hour. I just decided that when it comes to each player, like I'd like drag in pieces of music that I'd already had for them, like arrange them for the specific fight or the spell or whatever that they're using for that fight. And then when it gets to the next player, just to switch up the music a little bit and make it interesting to listen to change what's happening in the music. So that by the time it comes back round to the first player's action in the next turn, I can go back to what I've written for them in that fight and like sort of bring it through. So that it feels like the music's changing, but then at the same time you also get like an audio representation of each character going through the same fight. So like there might be something like a drum beat that like carries through the whole lot to like tie the whole piece of music in together. But I went into a little bit on this in the Patreon, into a Patreon post about one of the pieces of music that, to start out with, the tricky thing that I have found is that to start out with, everyone in the very first episode, so Juna, Orin, and Enkidu, they were all written in 4/4, like 4 beats to a bar, very straightforward. And then when I wrote the second episode to like with Gaius and Gwendolyn, to make them sound a bit different and to make like give myself more options, I wrote them in triple time, so like 6/8 and 3/4 and things. And then it got to the point that all of the characters were together, and the first fight that they are in, like the music is all over the place, because for me it's like it represents that they don't work together well as a team yet.
Yeah.
So the music is switching between like 4/4 to 3/4 as it changes character fighting. And then like later on I've sort of tied them all together. So a couple of Gwendolyn's themes from the second episode have been now rewritten in 4/4 to fit in with other people. And the other way around as well.
You're a bit of a genius, really, aren't you?
I spend too much time thinking about these things, is the point.
Keep doing it, please. It's gold. Really is. There are certain points where, like, basically there's going to be a chat about Enkidu's past or something. You know, he's talking about his role before. And it's like there was a moment I was listening to the episode the other day and I was like, and cue the tune. And it is one of my favorite character themes as well, because of the grand nature of it. But I like that there's that nostalgia, that familiarity with it.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to go back again and listen to those early episodes. I want to hear that fight music. I want to hear the carnage.
Yeah, there's I think it's episode 4 that in which they fight the deer. It switches around quite a lot. So yeah, go listen back to that, and you can hear how chaotic it is. I mean, it sounds nice as a piece of music. I hope.
I actually listened to that one the other day. Heard it through the grapevine. Good old Gaius's vicious mockery.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, like, I've slowly tied characters to certain instruments. So Enkidu is very brass, because of that, like, sort of regalness to it.
Yeah.
Juna has become staccato woodwind, I don't know why. She's just, and I feel like staccato, like especially like lower woodwind as well, sounds very goose-like. And for some reason, like
She's not
that-
ungoose-like.
no, I know, but just that like sound. Orin has got his pizzicato strings going on. I found there's actually for Gaius, it's an African instrument that I can't remember the name of for the life of me, but I found this. I was looking for a lute sound, and then I found this other one which has got a slight more like magical nature to the twangs. And then Gwendolyn, I've just fully given her the main theme. Every time she punches someone, it feels heroic. So I'm like, yeah, she can have no small roles. Like,
Oh, amazing.
yeah. And I'm hoping at some point that all of them do something together, and I'll just write like all of those instruments at once, and it will feel like it should. But otherwise,
There'll
that's
come
how
a
I've kind
point.
of, yeah.
There'll come
There
a
they
point
go,
where they gel
and
so
we
perfectly.
hold
Yeah.
hands and summon Captain Planet or something, and, then it'll come in with all of it.
I think there's just going to be an obvious point in the story where everyone just merges into Enkidu and you become
Yeah.
super Enkidu.
Oh.
4 new
Super
Patreons in
Enkidu.
there. Like, Patreons
Oh
or
my God.
patrons? Sorry,
Patreon.
I've been talking about Patreon too much.
But also
Oh my
Deacon's
God, that's where
theme,
all of
I
our
just
patrons
love.
live.
In
You all live in
England's
Enkidu's
head.
head.
Yes, my theme is very cool. It must be said. I was like,
Oh,
oh, I'm already here
it's
briefly,
so
but I've got a whole
great.
theme tune.
Yeah. Then yeah, that came out of our discussion of like his journey over on a ship and his like youth. I was like, I want it to feel like I'm going on an adventure and like really stereotypically adventure-like. It's ended up sounding a little bit piratey, but it's definitely got that
fine.
knee slapping type of,
Yeah.
which is very, very Deacon.
I think I know what I'm listening to tonight. Some bedtime music. I can't wait for you to release your album, David. I will be the first one
Oh,
there to
you
buy it.
should.
Because just quickly
Um,
before we move on, like the Clockwork Soul Sorcerer music that you did was just, I mean, I listened to that and I was like, that's the class. Done.
Yeah.
So
That was
good.
such a fun collaboration to work on as well. Whole bunch of us tabletop RPG composers like started following each other on Twitter, jumped into a Discord together, and then we were like, right, what are we working on as a group? And that, like, when Tasha's Cauldron of Everything came out, it was just the perfect opportunity to be like everyone, like, putting something together as a whole, but like working on our own pieces of music. And some of the whole collection is fantastic.
Join our Patreon to be able to download the whole album.
This is all one
I've
big
changed my mind.
advertisement, guys.
I'm
That's
going to
all it
listen
is.
to Deacon's theme tune, and then I'm going to listen to the entire album again tonight. That will be my nighttime music. Okay, moving on. We have a question. So this was originally asked on Facebook, but now, as she is in the Zoom, Pippa, would you like to ask a question?
Hello.
Hello.
My question, I guess, kind of goes a bit more to Vicky and David, just because of what it is, I suppose. So it's about the fact that now the first chapter is kind of tied up and the characters have moved on elsewhere. Is there anything or that you would like to have explored further, sort of inside Tillisham? Is there any kind of shops that maybe, David, you'd kind of thought they might go to that you never got to use? Were there any kind of NPCs that you'd designed that you never got to bring out? I know that Juna was like really wanting to go back into the Lockholt to
I
to
need
see-
to go back to the henge, Pippa.
exactly.
I
I know.
wanna go
I knew
back
that was
to
going to
the
be a thing.
Yeah.
But is there anything else that you kind of wished if you'd had more time there, you would have been able to explore further? Is my question.
I mean, yeah, like Juna is just, a hop, skip, and a jump ready to go back to the henge. And I mean, like you guys are talking about it in the Superfan chat. If I know David, he does not leave loose ends. And it really, really worries me as an individual and as a character. I mean, Juna would always go back to visit Jenny. I think, they're lifelong friends now. But the main thing is, what is happening to that henge now Ruana is not there? That's what I want to know.
I'm not going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a Lenny
Jenny,
and
yeah,
a
Lenny.
Brenny.
Yeah. All cousins of cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, I know Jenny from Tillisham. Oh yeah. Yeah. As for like unused things, there was actually very little like left behind in Tillisham that I hadn't planned for. Like some things got rearranged. So if they'd gone to the cemetery earlier, for instance, the whole little story thread of the bodies being taken, that would have happened much earlier. And wouldn't have taken place in the Vondale grounds. It would have taken place in the Lockholt Wood instead.
Oh wow!
So yeah, like again, as a way to like bring another character on side, like they could have helped out the huntsman's wife then, and then she might have like snuck them in somehow. The only things that were missed were three, like to fill out the town a little bit more, three tradesmen, a blacksmith, a baker, and a carpenter. And they were only there to like give more like hint toward the main storyline. So the baker could have told them a little bit more about the no candlestick makers. No, just Ben piping up from them comments again. I see you, Ben Galpin.
The chat is amazing tonight, by the way, guys.
It's brilliant. So the baker is an older man who, as a young boy, snuck into the woods with some friends to go looking for the witch. And then I had this whole little thing where basically she just made all of these boys get really itchy for a week. But he'd come out and like all of them had told fantastical stories about like being turned into frogs and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of like the false facts about Ruana in the wood had just come from kids playing in the wood and her like encouraging them away. And then between the blacksmith and the carpenter had recently been hired to make a lot of furniture for the Vondels, but was just delivering it to the gate. So he wasn't sure why they needed so much furniture. But obviously it was all going downstairs, so to speak. And the blacksmith was essentially there just to have a crush on the carpenter. And so to direct people over that way, like for that. But of course, like none of that came up. I think the blacksmith Mirth is mentioned when Enkidu buys a shield right toward the end. But that's it. Like everything else pretty much got used.
Nice. The one that always made me wonder was only because you mentioned it a couple of times in a particular episode was about the sewers. You were giving the characters a choice of three places.
Yes.
And I was going, I want to know what's in the sewers. I want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was an entrance into the underground bunker via the sewers. And that was also partly how the thieves had been moving around. They would steal stuff and then they'd jump into the sewers and get into the bunker that way.
Because Dahlia actually mentioned that at the point that you spoke about before, you know, when she was after the resurrection of her family, and, you know, because I thought that was like the only way that they were going to get into the bunker, but she mentioned the sewers then, and I'm with you, Pippa, like it stuck with me. It was like, right. So the footsteps out of the barn, right in the third episode, I think, if they'd follow those, they would have led to a sewer grate, and they could have gone down into the sewers and tried to explore down there, and basically there would have been a not quite a door, but like a metal opening with the Vondel symbol on it. So it was like another way into the bunker without necessarily having to use the key or without having to force their way through that dragon door either.
That feels like by far the way we should have gone.
Oh no, there was a real dragon on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously, like, you know, with any D&D sewer, there would have been some like ugly critters down there, some big old rats that would have like caused them trouble on the way. But yeah, like it was another option that obviously like they went through, they used other paths. So yeah, that's one of the fun things of like, I mean, I made a map for it and everything, but it's never going to be used. I will genuinely, like, yeah.
In my campaign.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll keep it hanging around until next time they're in a sewer and I can be like, haha, I've got one. But yeah, like, it's basically like trying to keep as many different routes open so that if one of them got cut off at any point, there were still options for the story to carry on, was basically my thinking in that. And yeah, if it had completely failed with Dahlia sort of getting the key off of her or like convincing her otherwise, then I would have like heavily hinted that there was a sewer network and maybe they should go look in the sewers because surely the sewers have got a way down underground in the sewers, you know.
Amazing. Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Pippa.
Pippa.
Cheers.
Thanks, Pippa.
Let's have another question from one of the our Patreon audience. So Hannah Clancy, you are in the Zoom, aren't you? And apparently you have a question to ask.
Yes, I do indeedy. So I've got two questions because I'm cheeky and I wanted to ask two things. Because I thought this one had already been asked and then it didn't, and I was like, right, I've got to say it. I'm expecting a sort of silent zip of the lips, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Will Deacon Fireheart be making a return?
I don't know, and I want that to be a yes.
I can only stare at David.
So we've really only, I think, Sarah, sort of obviously in the conversation that we've had about his character creation, we've not done his full story yet, have we?
Oh, no, nowhere near.
No. So
the option is there should the DM want and think Deacon is useful to come back. So yes, we haven't seen all of Deacon's story, so that's it's there as an open choice.
I mean, yes is the answer that we're looking for.
yes is the answer. Yeah, no, like I've got further plans for Deacon. So yeah, it'll just be about scheduling essentially and like making it fit in with the story as it goes. But yeah,
I mean, wild.
There is
magic
every
barbarians?
opportunity. Deacon is still alive. Deacon is still on his quest. So why not? Yeah.
Just comes back with like handfuls of frosting.
He's become a frosting addict since we saw him last.
That was Gwendolyn.
Gwendolyn. Yep.
Sorry, Hannah, I cut you off there.
No, it's right. Yeah, no, I just wondered if it was that you might come back as an alternative character. If perhaps Deacon didn't quite fit in, you might come back as someone else instead. I just didn't know whether that would be the level.
No, I think where we kind of left it was very much sort of, yeah, Deacon's very much got an option to come back where he is at the moment. So it'd be nice to have him back.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to say.
Plus, I want to know more about Siliphalia, so I need Sarah to come back just to give me the answers.
That was so random. That's so brilliant that you just came up with it on the fly. It's such a good name.
I don't even know how I came up with it. I had got it written down, I think, just before I was like, well, who is this warrior? And I did write it down, but yeah, it was after my conversation with David. So yeah, I kind of had forgotten that I hadn't told him that, so I saw his face go, oh.
How are we spelling this one?
How's this going? Yeah, but because the warrior was so important to Deacon, it was really important that I knew exactly everything about the warrior and who it was. And yeah, so I made sure that I fully fleshed out that story too.
It was really cool. Did you say he destroyed a whole army with like a toothpick or a pin or something? It was...
Yes, he defeated a half an army using nothing but a toothpick and the rays of the midday sun.
Amazing. I don't know how that works, but I want to know. So I can't wait till we meet the warrior. And you're not the only person that wanted to know this, Hannah, as well, because Nikki Dis had actually asked, when are we likely to find out about how Deacon's quest is progressing? And in all caps, I want more. So there was a big outcry for a Deacon return. So yeah, David, work your magic.
I would be very happy to assist that.
Oh, it's going to happen. It needs to happen. Yeah, it's just about when. It's just about when. Yeah.
Yay, thank you for asking that, Hannah, because now this exists. He said it now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I know. I was going to say about the name. I'm so glad you thought of that on the fly. I probably would have come up with something like Gary or Dave. Like, oh, Dave, the great warrior.
He's great.
I wish I could give a better idea of exactly where the name came from, but it literally just like, yeah, that sounds like a great warrior name. I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
But I did think of it before the episode, so yeah, I wasn't quite as on the fly as that.
Yeah, my other question that I wanted to ask was, so if you could play a different character for the rest of the campaign, who would you play and why? Obviously, David, you get your pick of anyone, which is great for you.
Question.
So one of the other cast characters.
Yes.
Ooh.
So you can't play your own character. So obviously for Vicky, you can't play Juna, and then obviously Sarah, you can't play Deacon. You have to play someone else for the rest of the story.
Oh, the cogs are turning. Look at them.
Yeah.
It's so hard because I want to play.
That's
all
a
of
great
them.
question.
No, that's the thing.
I think actually I might be able to answer this fairly quickly. I think I'd probably pick Juna, and that's not just because Vicky's here, but actually when I was talking about creating like a character for No Small Roles, my initial go-to was I wanted to create this older character, and as I started to think about it, I was like, this character already exists in No Small Roles, so I'd be treading on Juna's toes. So I think mine would be Juna. I think she's so bubbly and fun, but there's so much hidden in there. So I'd pick Juna, I have to say.
I think I'd pick Enkidu. I think it'd be really fun to play Enkidu, and like, just like personality wise, but also like logistically wise, I think it'd be a massive challenge. Like, I don't know how Daryl does it. So like intense and involved, but I think it would be really fun.
Thing is, I can see you just constantly making charisma checks all the time just to see what's going to happen.
That would be my safety net. Can I just make a charisma check?
Natural.
If Vicky's playing Enkidu, then I definitely want to play Gwendolyn.
Oh.
So yeah, mostly so that I can just wind you up.
Yeah.
Like from across the table. Like, yeah. No, Gwendolyn is such a... I love watching Grace play Gwendolyn. Like, she's got that wonderful balance of like, I'm new to the world, but also like I have morals, so and I have a line. Like, don't cross that line. Like the like headstrong nature of her, but like those moments of naivety are so fun because it just means that you can dive into every situation, but at the same time still have like sudden realizations about things that other people take for granted. Granted.
Speaking to me too much, Nick.
It's spreading, Sarah. It's spreading.
Would you want to be Gwendolyn on Frosting or just Gwendolyn all the time? Because the episode of Berry and Fields was just the choices that she would make. It was so funny.
Yeah.
See, actually, do you know what? I was so looking forward to getting to sort of Deacon getting to know Gwendolyn as Gwendolyn actually is, because there are certain similarities in that naivety. And then she was on Frosting for most of it. And I was just like, what is this? It cracked me right up. It was just like, oh, okay, good. I love curveballs like that. But yeah, I just remember going, oh, okay, I need to rethink this tactic.
The other fun thing about Gwendolyn is obviously she's a monk. So on paper, it's simpler to play. You can worry about like the enjoyment of like the playing rather than like I was thinking maybe Orin or Gaius, but both of them have got the spells and sometimes my brain gets a little bit broken with those. So.
I'd love to say Orin, but I do not even understand how artificers work.
No, I would want to play Orin just based on what I've heard, the way that Ben has built his spells, because that's the interesting thing about an artificer is that they create this magic from the things that they've constructed. But it's like the thing with the bees. The first time I heard that, I was just, that is genius. And like I applauded nobody because nobody was there. But, it's that and the duct tape of mending. Oh,
yeah. And have you seen the bees on Orin on the No Small Roles artwork that Sophia did?
Sophia's such an amazing job. Yeah. Who would you play, Hannah?
Yeah, I was going to say Hannah. Who would you play?
I think, that's so tricky because I've been telling David about this because I know David from work. I'm going to play a campaign soon, the very first campaign ever. And I'm so excited.
Yay!
So I feel like for experience reasons, I'd want to be Enkidu because I love magic and I love the idea of the warlock. And I've got such an edgy backstory for my characters. I'm like, if I just channel that inner edge from Enkidu, then it will help me in my campaign.
He's all edge, isn't he?
He's all edge.
He's got multiple edges, apparently, depending on what he rolls.
He does, yes.
The music plays and everyone's like, ooh, yeah.
Have you decided, just to go like Uber Geek, what kind of warlock you're thinking of playing?
Oh, so I've got a really deep backstory thing, which I don't know if I'm allowed to do, but my DM said it was okay, where I had the idea where it's a tiefling, but she's rejected her tiefling side of herself after her family abandoned her during a raid. And so she makes a deal with the devil and turns into a human.
So cool.
Such a good story.
David, can we get Hannah to bring her character?
Next guest character.
First. I've done no ability checks or anything. I'm like, she has no scores, but backstory.
That's where it all starts.
The
Everything
scores
else is
take
just-
care of
yeah.
themselves if
I
you
was
have
good-
a
yeah.
they do.
backstory.
Backstory
Yeah.
comes first.
So I think warlock wise, I think I very much want her to be like a kind of a protector, because the whole point of tieflings is that they're quite aggressive and people don't like them. And like part of her consequence for the reason, the thing what she can't do because she's made this deal is that she can't ever verbally express her love to anyone. Like that's her curse she's to live with, because the whole
And
point of her
does your DM
changing-
know that?
Oh yeah. I've told her like everything.
I
I've
feel
sent
like your
her a
DM is literally going to
4-page
be like, and here's a love interest.
Yeah,
I
one
reckon
after
that's
the
what's gonna
other.
happen.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Of course.
I'm
Yeah,
really
so I-
intrigued by the idea of a celestial warlock that's signed some kind of pact with the devil.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So like I thought the magic would be more like protective, like they want to help people and be kind, but they have to like keep moving in order to not form like really close attachments. So I think it's going to make for an interesting campaign at the very least.
Oh,
Sam,
so
who would you
wonderful.
play?
Oh yeah, I think it would be Orin. Just for the reasons that I've said. It would be picking up the Orin that Ben's already been playing. It wouldn't be like creating Orin from the beginning. I want to be like, oh, my tape. But I love that the backstory hasn't quite been fleshed out yet. That he can be kind of a closed book, so I wouldn't be putting my own spin on the character. You know, I try and pick up on that kind of like slightly like awkward nature of like, do I give this information away? You know, how does that reflect upon me? But also he seems like quite a sweet and innocent youth, which when I look at like my past characters, these are the guys that I really enjoy playing, the people that have loads of power but don't really want to use it in an offensive way. I just find him like a really intriguing character. And his spells and his dragon are just so cool. Yeah, that'd be me. Watch out, Ben. Coming for you. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hannah, for your question.
Thank you, Hannah.
Questions.
Thank you.
I think let's turn the focus on Sarah a little bit. I think we want to know a bit more about Deacon Fireheart Button, and it's actually not just the listeners who have questions. The No Small Roles cast have sent in questions for you as well. So for Deacon, should we do like a little bit of hot seating for Sarah here? I'm just going to fire away with these questions. Answer them as best you can. So, what was your inspiration for Deacon Fireheart Button? Like, is he based on anyone that you know or that you've met, or is it like a random creation?
I don't think he's certainly not based on any one specific person at all, but I think there are elements of him that are definitely inspired from other things. I'm a huge Terry Pratchett fan, and I have since the beginning of last year been going back through all of my Discworld series again, and I have a feeling that I might have been reading Interesting Times when I was thinking about Deacon, and I suspect the character of Two Flowers somewhere kind of influenced this idea of someone just so naive at the world that had no idea. And it wasn't me directly taking that, but I sort of stopped to think about it, and I suspect that element influenced his sort of naivety. As I say, when I was first thinking about making a character, the last character I made for a campaign is, she's a tiefling rogue, she's grumpy, she's 19, she's just like, yeah, whatever, and it's totally kick-ass, and I was like, she's great fun, but I just wanted something totally different, and initially I was kind of thinking of someone, like I said earlier, a little bit of an older character. And when I started to think about what I wanted that character to be, I realised it was too like Juna. And that's when I started to sort of think about, well, what else interests me? And then sort of, as I started thinking about this naive character, I knew he had to be a boy. He had to be from somewhere and different, had sort of travelled. And I just loved this idea of this person just taking the world at face value. But I also didn't want him to be completely squishy. I wanted the sort of irony of this person who has no idea and no knowledge of common sense, but weirdly is actually very good at I suppose that charismatic charm and then sort of thinking about character. I was chatting with a friend actually who plays a lot of D&D and kind of chatting through what I want, and that's where we started to come up with this idea. He said, have you heard of Wild Magic Barbarian? I was like, no, what's that?
So cool, aren't they?
And once we started talking about it, I was like, that's exactly what I need. I need it to be something that is powerful that has no sense. There's no logic behind it. It just fitted everything I was thinking of. And then I suppose the other bit on top of that, I'm a Brummie and, we don't get represented enough. So that's where the accent name came in. And I was like, I think these sort of elements all started to drop into place, and that's how he sort of started to come together. And I think I just always had in my head that he just always has this huge smile on his face, and that kind of helped too.
And that came across through listening to it as well. I could feel your smile, and I could feel how much you were enjoying playing that character. And that is something that I have to say for the entire No Small Roles cast, is that first moment from you guys speaking, I knew who you were. Like, everyone came in and they were their character, and they've been their character and adapting throughout this story. It's the same for Deacon. You kind of got this sense of like a kid who is pure talent, but not a lot like going on up there.
No, very little.
So
very
good.
little.
Actually, this is great. There's another question here. Like, people would love to know why that particular like subclass appealed for Deacon. When you first heard like Wild Magic Barbarian, did you have another one in mind before that? And did it just kind of like click, or did you have to make parts of the Deacon you'd already started thinking about meld with that class?
Do you know? No, there was another class that. Oh goodness me, this is really. I think I've got him so clear in my head now. I actually can't remember what class it was.
Well, I know we had
there was another.
In the character creation, there was a Wild Magic Sorcerer was another option.
Sorcerer, that was it.
Yeah.
And I kind of bounced between the two a little bit. And I think it just became, the more I started to realise who he was and this sort of naivety, this kind of, actually there's something almost too, there's something too intelligent about being a sorcerer. I kind of like the idea that this brawn kind of came about almost by accident. He didn't really... that was something he could have just done. He didn't need to think about it, which then made the magic funnier when it happened. That's that. I toyed with that a little bit, but I think it would have taken him in a bit more of a sensible direction.
But does he know why his wild magic, like when he goes into a rage, why these magical effects happen? Or, do you think it's kind of a surprise for Deacon as well?
Yeah, it's a huge surprise for Deacon as well.
So
he knows it. Yeah, he knows it happens, but he doesn't know why. He thinks he's going to get all of his answers from this warrior. From Valia. He's on his pilgrimage. He's got this solved. It'll be fine. It's in his head.
We've got another question here, which is, I'd love to know about all of Deacon's sayings from his warrior. So, I really enjoyed how much depth they brought to the character, and where did the inspiration for them come from?
That's a brilliant, yes. I do actually, I actually had to write down all of his sayings because I'd just come up with things randomly in the day and I was like, that'd be perfect. I need to do that. I need to put this down. And it might be that I saw, you don't see them so much anymore. There was a whole point where social media was swamped in inspirational quotes. And I suppose it kind of came from that idea. But I just kind of liked the idea that he'd got this, the compass comes from his dad. The stories of the warrior comes from his dad. And so he's kind of grown up with these stories. They're sort of interspersed with these snippets of wisdom. And he just takes them at absolute face value. And I love that. So yeah, I suppose a combination of inspirational quotes. A little loath to say something like the Jedi, but a little bit something like the Jedi, where there is something that apparently there's books and stuff about it, but no, that's never really gone into it, and certainly not in the films anyway. And so it's kind of like there's the Jedi lore is there, but people kind of espout the different bits. So I suppose there's a little element of that came into it as well.
I mean, I can't wait to see David playing the warrior as Yoda.
Yeah.
A pin, sunbeams.
Okay. It's canon now. That's canon.
I can't wait. Did anything surprise you about Deacon's character that you hadn't actually planned? Were there moments in that episode where you're like, oh, I didn't see that one coming, but it's there now?
Yeah, I suppose actually in the sense that as he started interacting with people, and I think we had discussed the fact that there must be something quite charismatic about him because he's managed to talk himself into getting on this boat. There had to be something about him that's relatively charismatic, but actually I was surprised once we started playing exactly how charismatic he was and how much he was able to find his way in with each character. And it certainly wasn't ever a deliberate ploy of, oh, right, I need to get this person on side. But actually this development of genuine interest and friendship came about from his naivety. And that was certainly nothing I planned. The whole conversation he had with Enkidu and asking about the swords. And I love the developments of those little relationships with each character. So yeah, that was definitely not planned of how well he could get on with people like that.
Okay, it came across really well. There was quite a good bond between you and Enkidu as well. You know, when you were dealing with the bodies and the hex and everything, and like the way that you spoke to each other back at the campfire. You really did get that sense. More so than with Gaius, for example, who turns up naked and in a doorway.
Yes, he was a bit shocked by that.
So actually, this is interesting because the Gaius thing leads on to this. What would Deacon have done if he hadn't got his compass back?
Oh, do you know what? I don't think he ever considered it was an option, ever. I think it would have been, I would have found out when the game happened, because genuinely, in Deacon's head, there was just no way it was going to happen. He knew where he was going and he was going to get it. He's so single-minded, he just doesn't see that things won't work out the way he thinks it will. He thinks he's going to get to that warrior. He thinks there won't be any issues. So he will, in his head. And it's not until he's literally cut down dead that he'll be like, oh, right. Oh, shit. I need to come up with something else. So yeah, I had no plan for Deacon's reaction if he didn't get that compass. I was actually a bit nervous about it because I was like, God, I don't know how this is going to go.
I mean, I love that moment when you saw it and you were like, no, I'm going in with this card. Like, doesn't matter what David's, character might have with their cards. It's like, no, I'm winning this game. I'm putting everything down.
Yeah. Oh, goodness me. That card game. I couldn't believe my rolls. I genuinely couldn't believe it. I was just watching my dice going, this is amazing. I can't believe this is happening. I was so excited. Yeah, so I'm thrilled that he won it.
I mean, I was getting worried because I was genuinely rolling dice along with you as well. Like, I hadn't planned out the numbers or anything. And like, as my numbers were getting higher, I was like, is this going to happen for Deacon?
Yeah.
A lot riding on this one set of cards, but...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, off the top of a hunch might be that he might have just started to use force, to be honest, to try and get it back. Would be my suggestion, but I mean, depended how the other person played the game and how they handled it, so...
I think everyone get your dice ready as well. We'll have a game of, strip card game after this?
Strip card game!
Strip card game.
The perks of being a Patreon member. See more of your cast than you ever thought.
Let me get my chainmail testicle out again.
No small rolls here.
No.
Definitely not.
Another question. Do you think Deacon will find the warrior? Now, we know what Deacon thinks. Deacon, definitely yes. Sarah, do you think Deacon will find the warrior?
I'm going to leave that hanging.
No!
Interesting.
I'm going to leave that hanging for multiple reasons.
Ooh.
I'm intrigued.
Sorry.
I can just refuse to ask more questions until you give me an answer. Probably, for time constraints, we should probably push on. And now we're kind of we're opening it up back to everyone, and I think this is a kind of a question for everyone. Maybe, David, you can pick a character for yourself. But this is from Emma Claire, who asked this over Facebook. You bought each other presents for the Heart of Spring, but if you could, what would you want to buy your own character as a gift? And let's ask Vicky this one, since you have like a core character.
What would I, Vicky, buy for Juna?
For Juna, yeah.
God, what a good question. I'm answering this like knowing what everyone knows in the game. I think if I gave my true answer, it would be like the biggest spoiler I could give. Oh God, don't know.
I mean, maybe Gwendolyn bought Juna the perfect present.
It was the perfect present.
The mindset, or just like, Jenny in a box or something.
Jenny in a box. I mean, like, she's never gonna not enjoy like multiple familiars. I think I'd get her a second familiar to be friends with Ruana.
Would this be the animal personification of? Because you've got Ruana
Jenny.
with you now.
Of Jenny.
Okay, so you don't.
Yeah.
What animal would Jenny be?
Goose.
Goose works. I was thinking, some kind of bird like a parrot or a
parrot would be even
so
better.
So it's going to make a lot of noise.
So yeah, I think that's what I'd get.
She'd go off, she'd hear a message and she'd relay it back to you, like the gossip queen that she is.
Yeah. But it would take ages and ages.
Yeah. Yeah, she'd fill you in on everything, not just what it is that she'd been sent to see or whatever. She'd be like, oh, and there was this other guy, and I saw some kissing, and oh my gosh, have you heard about these two?
Love it. Sarah, what would Deacon get for themselves?
Pushed to pick one thing because I was like, most of the stuff that he really wants is all experiential stuff, so that doesn't count. But I think actually just keys to an armory and him to have a pick of what the hell he likes.
Ooh.
He just wants to play with weapons, so I think just let him probably want to pick up the biggest, heaviest thing he could possibly carry just to see if he could use it. So I'd kind of just say, yeah, there's the keys, and you go, have fun.
Nice.
More things to stuff in your backpack. I love it.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
Can I fit this massive? I have a long sword and I've got this, and if I put that under my arm, yeah, he'd be totally that. So yeah, as many weapons as he can carry.
Love it. David, firstly, which character would you be?
I was thinking, I was like, do I get Jenny a little, like, Jenny for Mayor badge? Do I, no, do you know what? I feel like if I were to buy anyone anything, I would buy Kral a replacement table. He was wronged. He just wanted his stuff back, and nobody would give it to him. He was quite happy just sitting in his tower.
I seem to remember something about the Dead Rising and Titans tearing the earth asunder, so we know that that's a lie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that wasn't maybe all Kral's fault. You don't know. Those are just possible ends of the world that may or may not be coming. Has any of it been stopped?
That army of the dead at the henge was 100% Kral. Don't even pretend it wasn't.
That was yeah. Or maybe I'd buy Iris a lock for his barn, so nobody else was coming in stealing stuff.
Oh, I miss Iris.
Yeah, I just was thinking that, Sam. I was literally like taking an in-breath to say exactly the same thing. Like, I really miss Iris.
We're getting smiles from the rest of the Patreon members as well, which I think they agree. Yeah, good character, David.
When lockdown's over, Baby David, you should role play Iris, and we'll like come to your house and pretend it's his tavern and have a lovely time.
Aw.
I mean, that sounds like a lot of work for me. Thank you.
Make sure you write the music for it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If I could just have some tavern music playing in the background, get a whole brewery, and just make you I'll serve you drinks for the night. Yeah, okay.
It's all right. I'll role play Jenny, and I will have already been elected mayor, so I'll do some work too.
Glorious. Or I'll roleplay Jenny, and I'll just keep popping in and out, and every time I come back in, I'll be somebody else.
That's our Patreon evening out.
I was going to say I'll be Bessie because you'll blatantly leave me out.
Guy has to be running off. Fuck, where's the horse?
We digress. We got another question here from Superfan Hannah. Over to you.
Okay, so this may be a little bit more conceptual, but if you as a person got like transported to a fantasy land and suddenly were a D&D character, what do you think your class would be and what would your proficiencies be? Like you as a human being, not if you were making a new character.
I did a really in-depth online quiz to see what race and class I would be, and I came out as a druid dwarf, which I really stand by. And then, like, what proficiencies would we choose, or what do you think we would have to have, like, what we are genuinely more proficient at?
Based on your current, like, personality and interests and skill set, what do you think your proficiencies would be?
I would be town folk.
You lie, Sam.
HP of 1.
I think my proficiencies would be climbing, running, and that's it.
All of those athletic things.
Yeah.
That's definitely, yeah.
I think I'd be nearer the physical end.
I mean, I'm just putting out there, everybody here would have performance as a proficiency. I've seen enough of these guys performing to know that they are very, very good. And I hope that I can add it to mine as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hamlet over here,
We
definitely.
check that circle.
Yep, so I would be a druid, dwarf, climber.
Sure. I feel like if I wasn't a bard, I'm not sure where I'd fit.
Which you would be.
Yeah. Bard or wizard, I think, is probably where I'd end up. Just happier with books and things than, proficiency-wise, I've got no idea. Beyond performance, which, whilst I can write music, cannot play any instruments.
You can play the ukulele.
Okay, I can play the ukulele. I've got some chords on a ukulele, and I own a 2-stringed violin. But that's it. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, bard.
I think you'd have all of the, like, charisma-y proficiencies.
Mm.
Really?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Performance, persuasion, definitely deception.
Definitely.
Oh, deception.
We
Okay,
know.
deception. Yeah, I've got that. Yeah, what about you, Sarah?
I mean, I think I'd probably be a halfling, but given my genuine height in real life, I'm only 5 foot by explanation. I'm really rubbish at remembering what all the classes are and what they do. I think my proficiencies I could probably do a little bit easier. I know which ones I wouldn't be. I definitely wouldn't be a bard because I'm rubbish with music. And having played a rogue a lot, I'm definitely not a rogue either. She's fun, but no. I think so. My proficiencies, I think, would be things like investigation and like persuasion, insight. Maybe they'd be the kind of things that I'd be more sort of comfortable with. I'm not massively a little bit of physical, but not a huge amount. As I definitely not musical at all. So yeah, I don't know what class would suit that the best that I can think off the top of my head. It definitely wouldn't be.
I think you'd make quite a good like paladin, like someone who like gets stuff done, organizes leads, that kind of stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah, I can never quite remember the distinctions between the clerics, the paladins, and the monks. But yeah, I was one of those with paladin.
Though at the same time, if Humphrey were there with you, Beastmaster Ranger.
Oh my goodness, yes.
It's funny you say that because I was going to go with that.
Well, I'd have to have my dog with me, so yeah, Humphrey would come too. I mean, he'd just bark at everything. It'd be perfect. Protection right there.
What about you, Sam and Hannah?
Yeah, I was going to say 100%, based on what we've been doing in this last year of the pandemic, the only thing that we can do is, go outside for walks with the dogs, and we got loads of woodlands near us. And I've always been quite good with a bow. I do think I would be some kind of like, wood elf ranger.
A bow or a bow?
Both, actually. But
Good.
the one that
Good
goes
skill to have.
I love how Vicky again just gestured on a podcast. A bow or a bow?
I said what I meant with my a bow or a bow.
That was super clear.
I mean,
I'll get
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarity. Yeah, the one that shoots arrows. I've always been good
The
with.
second time you said them both, I heard it. Yeah, so it makes more sense.
Sorry, I completely railroaded you, what you were saying, and I did not mean to.
No, not at all. I think wood elf.
You're good
ranger,
with a bow.
Beastmaster, because I'd be there with my dog, who in this situation would be a direwolf.
Amazing.
Sure.
Slightly more ferocious than the cute, adorable mess he is. And I've always been told that I walk too quickly, and there's something about, the long strider ranger. I think that fits in with my skills, like acrobatics, survival. Yeah, I think that makes sense for me. I'll think of one later that is absolutely on point, but for now, I will be, ranger. How about you, Hannah?
Mm-hmm.
How do you see yourself?
Probably also a halfling. But I have to say at the moment I would definitely be a bard, both because I do play music and love music, and I feel like that's where my skill set lies.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm playing a goblin bard at the moment, and I don't know, maybe I'd be a goblin.
Ooh.
I love
Nice.
that.
It's a really great way of unleashing some of my id, like being a horrible little goblin.
I just love the fact that you've chosen a bard, charisma-based, and you got a -2 as a goblin. It's so good. Amazing. Thank you so much, Hannah.
Brilliant question.
I think we have run very late, but I hope everyone's been enjoying it as much as I have. This is why it runs away from us. But let's ask one more question, again from our favourite Michael Cook through Facebook, who has asked this time, which character do you think you get on with most in real life? Ooh. I'm going to put it out there and say Juna, because you can't not love her.
She's just adorable. Yeah, I think it would be Juna. I just want to give her a hug all the time. Although, I don't know, I'd quite like Deacon as well, to be honest.
Oh,
He's such an idiot.
Deacon's got so much
I know he's not
energy.
main. He's only an episodic guy, but
At
he's
the
fun.
same time, you know that you could have hours of conversation with Deacon.
Yeah.
He would just keep going, and that would be great.
Yeah, he'd be very entertaining.
Yeah.
I'm gonna definitely choose Deacon. He could come and do some paddle boarding and some bits and bobs and have a chat.
well up for
yeah.
Yep.
For me, if it wasn't Deacon, it would be Orin.
Aww.
Orin would be very easy to have quiet time with.
Yeah, you'd just be making something and you could play music.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Chill.
just just relaxing with each other. Like, you can have interesting conversations, definitely. But yeah, Orin is much calmer. I'm quite a calm person, I think. Quiet person is how I would say it, rather than high energy.
So we've actually, I've noticed in the chat that the patrons have been asked who they would get on with. So Hannah, who would be yours?
Gaius, he's jokes.
That is a great shout, Hannah. That is a great
Who
shout.
wouldn't love to just dive into a round of strip card game? Come on.
Oh, I love this. We got a message from Karen saying Orin, 'cause bees.
Because bees.
So good.
Valid.
Hannah Clancy, I don't know if you want to read yours out or I could read it out for you.
I can read it out. It just makes you sound a bit like a drug addict. I'm just like Juno, because, you know, I've got loads of tea, I've got crochet stuff, and we can have a little bit of frosting. Oh, yeah.
I feel like Juna
Wow.
would be well up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew it since the episode with the tea when she thought she was getting an orgy. She's like, I thought I got an orgy. And I was like, yes, she'd absolutely love a bit of frosting on a Friday night.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely some like social frosting rather than military. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Quality
nothing
night.
too dangerous.
Pippa, did you have one?
I was thinking, like, it depends what the situation would be as to who would be the best companion.
Yeah.
You know, like, if it was like Friday night down the pub, it would have to be like Gaius and Deacon, because I think they'd be the ones who'd be up for kind of staying out the latest and partying the hardest.
Yeah, definitely.
But then again, I think like I could be quite an introvert, and I think therefore I'd get on quite well with Orin, because it would be okay to have that kind of like silence without it being awkward. But then Juna's such a lovely kind of mother hen that you think that like whatever situation you got in, she would kind of like sort you out and look after you. Yeah, I don't know. It's so tricky to decide. I think Gwen would be awesome down the pub as well, just because, you know, bust out the
How
frosting.
cool would it be to hang out with Gwen and Enkidu at the same time?
Oh my god.
That would be really fun.
I mean,
As long as I don't have to sit in the middle, I'm fine.
A safe social distance, Pippa, is fine.
Absolutely. I'll be a fly on the wall,
Yeah.
but that would be great.
I feel like I'd love to go to a pub with Gwendolyn and Enkidu just so that you could sit back and have a drink with someone else whilst they're off arguing in a corner.
Karen's just put in the chat. So Hannah said, Gwen Kidu, make it happen. And then Karen's written, have some popcorn.
Love it.
I'm surprised that it wasn't just an all-out, Gaius for you though, Pippa, because we've heard your music and the stuff that you and Gaius could come up with would be legendary.
Oh, that
You'd
would
actually
be
make
fun,
him a
wouldn't it?
quality bard.
Jam session with Pippa and Gaius, yeah.
I would be up for that any time.
Oh, the cover of the theme music that you did was just. I haven't had a chance to
Oh,
say this
thank
to
you, guys.
face-to-face, was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Might
If
have
anyone
listened to it 4 or
listening has
5 times
not
in a row.
heard that, it's
Well, credit to David
over
for writing
us.
such awesome themes that then I can just manipulate and do crazy things with.
Just one more thing before, how many people sing along with the theme tune as they're listening to it? Because I don't plan to, but I do it every time. Yeah, hands up all over the board.
Definitely, yeah.
I love it.
Mostly, and every time it gets to that big note, and we all know the big note, I just cringe because I'm like, oh, that's flat.
Only to your ears, Mr. Bard.
That needs a re-record.
well, there was some rapping that someone recorded to put onto the theme tune that the person who was putting it together didn't put on it, and it would have covered it beautifully, David.
I mean, do you want to give us a rendition of it now?
No,
Vicky?
you know
Or-
what? Save this for bonus content.
It is brilliant. There are definite outtakes.
It got hardly vetoed from the track.
That good.
It's worth the effort, though. Oh, amazing. Guys, that was absolutely beautiful. We have massively overrun on time, but I hope you've all enjoyed yourself as much as I have. And I hope you'll join us again when we will have, other players in, different cast members. You'll be able to ask them different questions. And any of you other Patreon supporters, anybody who's considering joining us on Patreon, really consider doing this because we've had an absolute blast tonight. And
It's been so good hanging out with everyone
It's
from
really so
Patreon.
much fun.
Like, join Patreon just to come hang out on these. Like, it's
Yeah.
lovely. Cheers, guys.
easiest job I've ever had. It's lovely.
And thank you, Sam, for hosting it as well.
Yeah, thank you, Sam.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me, guys, as well. Nice to come in.
Thank you for Deacon.
I mean, you're going to be back, Sarah.
Guest in again.
I was going to say, I would say any time, but make sure it's soon. We need more Deacon. But thank you so much to DM David Knight, Sarah Gain, and Vicky Gaskin for answering all of our questions, and to all our Patreon members for supporting us
We love
really do
you.
appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed to that, give it a little click. Look at the offers that are out there because they're worth it. I myself am a Patreon member. But everyone, thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed listening to us. We've had a blast here and can't wait to speak to you soon. I think there's only one thing left to say, and I really want the Patreon members to do this as well. Do you know what we're about to say?
Everyone
How do we
is
say
nodding.
goodbye?
Some blank faces. It's going to be okay, everyone.
Okay, everybody,
Just say whatever
unmute
you
yourselves. Let's do it.
Anon
For
now.
For now, guys.
Hey!
Hey.
want. Anon!
I always have the anxiety where I'm like, are we saying for now or just anon?
Is it for now or is it just a none?
Ben here, just popping in to say a big thank you to Vicky, David, and special guest Sarah Gain for joining us for No Small Questions. Huge thanks as well to our superfan Sam Oakes, and to all the superfans from Patreon who joined us live and asked questions. If you've been enjoying this episode and thinking to yourself, well, that sounds fun, how do I get to listen in live and ask my questions to the cast? Well, you're in luck. Our next No Small Questions is being recorded on Thursday, the 18th of February. And once again, our Patreon supporters will be able to join us for the conversation as it happens. Answering your questions next time will be our monk and bard duo, Grace and Chris. And for February, we're also going to be running an offer on our Patreon, where all backers from teacup and above will get access to all the Patreon perks for February, regardless of level. So, that means for any level of support from £3 or above, you get access to patron polls, a chance to listen to episodes early, behind the scenes and bonus content, David's homebrewed creations to use in your own games, music and more. That's for the whole month of February. You can find out more about our teacup, teapot and tea caddy Patreon levels and sign up to help support our show at patreon.com/No Small Rolls. Or you can search for No Small Rolls on Patreon and find us that way. As ever, you can also search us out on social media. We're at No Small Rolls on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook by searching for No Small Rolls. Rolls is spelt with a double L, as in the double L at the end of small. Or